Hey, welcome back everyone, Old Bubs here, and I have been extensively carrying this Kunwu Pulsar in order to give you a full review, so let's get after it. In textured titanium, the Kunwu Pulsar weighs in at 4.37 ounces, with the blade length right at about 3.5 inches, an overall length of about 7.5 inches, and a cutting edge of about 3.25 inches. The Kunwu Pulsar is using a bar lock system running on ceramic bearings in LMAX steel. If you're unfamiliar with LMAX, it is also made by Buller and is very similar to M390, though it boasts a finer grain structure with the intention being for increased edge retention and toughness. For a size comparison, here it is next to a Spyderco Para 3 and a Benchmade bug out. As you can see, the overall dimensions are fairly close to a Benchmade bug out with a wider cutting edge and wider scales to accommodate bearings and for a more robust ergonomic feel. Let's talk about the long list of things that I really like about this knife. It does not take long to realize that a lot of care and intentionality has been put into the design of this knife. Everywhere you look, there are little details that shine through. From the quality on the jimping on the spine, the rounded corners of the spine of the blade, the excellent grind, the attention to sharpening, the extended choil, the quality machining of the scales, and the overall robustness of the hardware. Kunwu Knives has clearly put a great deal of effort into providing a quality cutting tool. As I've carried this knife, I have absolutely loved this blade. This blade has been extremely slicey, breaking down cardboard, opening mail, and has excelled at some of my favorite tasks to do with the knife, such as preparing a nice lunch of salami and cheese out in the woods, and of course slicing an apple while I tell stories.
Did I ever tell you about that time I had to use a pair of underbritches to lasso a rabid squirrel?
After a couple of weeks of carrying this knife and putting it through its paces, I did experience a little bit of loss of sharpness at about the midsection out towards the tip, because that's the part of the knife that I ended up using most, but I was able to hit this on a leather strop with the 6 micron suspended diamond compound, and it brought it back to life pretty well within about 20 or 30 strokes on the strop. There are a few things about this knife that I wanted to take a moment to mention for informational purposes so that everyone is aware of what they're getting into when they're purchasing this knife. I want to be clear that this is not a knock on this knife at all. This knife is an excellent cutting tool. There are a couple of little things that I did experience that I found less than desirable. The first thing is, this knife is among the more difficult to disassemble and reassemble knives that I have encountered. There are so many screws involved in disassembling, but it is something that you should be aware of, especially considering that this knife comes with an extra set of Omega springs and a stiff set of Omega springs, which is why I disassembled and reassembled the knife in the first place. I put in the stiffer springs, which I do prefer. I think this knife works better with a little bit harder detent, and since it runs on bearings, it still falls shut really easily, and I believe benefits greatly from the stiffer springs. The last thing is, my first impression of this pocket clip was actually pretty good. After use, I encountered something that I have heard lots of knife reviewers complain about, and I'd always kind of scoffed at them being a little too picky, but it is extremely disappointing when this happens to you. So this pocket clip has a really exaggerated duckbill, and yes, you can feel that in your hand, especially when you grip hard and really cut into something, but more importantly, this sticks out of your pocket and is something that can very easily be caught. While I was carrying this knife, I was playing on a wooden jungle gym at a local park with my son. I had this knife catch when I was going through a small space, and it bent this pocket clip way out. I was able to take off the pocket clip and bend it back to some reasonability, but clearly being titanium, this pocket clip will never be the same. I do have plans to try to procure a replacement pocket clip, but this is something that I will forever keep in mind when I'm making the decision to carry this knife or not. If I'm going to be going into a situation where this could easily be caught on something, I will probably choose a different knife. One of the biggest selling points of the Kunwu Pulsar is the value proposition. You're getting an extremely well-built knife and premium materials for a very reasonable price tag. Kunwu Knives is based out of and manufactured in China, which, if you haven't been paying attention, is not at all a marker of subpar manufacturing. Also, you can get this knife in G10 variants for right at $180, which, now that I have this knife and I've played around with it a little bit, I think I would actually be just as happy or potentially even happier in one of the G10 variants. Plain and simple, this knife is also just really good looking. I'm working super hard to bring you the most valuable and engaging content possible. If you wouldn't mind subscribing to my channel, it serves as an indicator that I'm accomplishing my goals, and it tells the YouTube algorithm that my videos are a-okay to spread to other people. As a final conclusion, the Kunwu Pulsar is absolutely a knife that you should take a look at, and you should be paying attention to Kunwu knives in general. If my review of this knife has left you with any additional questions, please leave me a comment down below and I'd be happy to answer anything that I left out. I also always appreciate your feedback on the knife itself and the video itself, so please consider the comment section an open forum. I hope that you'll let love and light fill your life. Stay sharp out there, everyone, and I will see you on the next one.